Okay, so this is the regular City Council meeting of Minnetrista for April 6, 2020. In our first order, I'd like to welcome everybody here. Our first order, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and then I'd like to, stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. And I'll just take it on your word that you're standing. So, all right, if you all join me for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, that didn't come
Okay, that was weird.
Maybe we can have one person say it, and we all just whisper it.
There you go. I think we'll have to do that next time. All right. First, so a little humor is always good. So first, I'm going to do roll call, and this will also then be our voice check. So I'm going to start out with council members, and if you would just please say I'm here or yes, Mayor, I'm here. Just a couple of words so we make sure that everybody can be heard. Start out with Council Member Shannon Bruce.
I am here.
John Chumperland.
I'm here.
Mike Molitor. Mike Molitor. I didn't hear. Is Mike?
I have Mike on the shows up here.
Okay, and is he on participant? Is he on panelist or?
He's shown up as he's shown up as attendance. He's not muted.
Okay.
Here, just a moment.
Well, he might have his phone muted on his end, though.
No, it just unmuted me.
Oh, there you go. Okay. You
There
were the
you
mystery
go.
number, Councilmember Molitor. Sorry about that. Okay, we're good now.
Mike Molitor, you are here?
Yes, I am.
All right. And Pam Mortensen?
I am here.
All right. Then we have our city engineer, Allison Fauski.
I'm here.
And also with WSB, we have Greg Johnson.
I'm here.
And then we have with BSI, Kelly Mulhern.
I'm here.
All right. And then we have Director of Administration, Ali Palfos.
I'm here.
City Clerk, Chris Lindquist.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm here.
Public Works Superintendent, Gary Peters.
I am here.
City Administrator, Mike Baroni.
I am here.
Finance Director, Brian Grimm.
Yes, I'm here.
Community Development Director, David Abel.
I am here.
Attorney with Kennedy and Graven, Ron Beatty.
I'm here.
And Chief of Police, Paul Falls.
I am here.
And I am also here, Lisa Whalen, the mayor. So next order of business is special presentations. I just want to, we really don't have any, with one minor little exception. I'd like to just say welcome to Ali Palfos. This is your first meeting with us. Glad to have you on board.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it's nice to meet everybody, even though it's a little strange. But I just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me to work with Minnetrista. I look forward to meeting some of you in person. I know I've met a few of you already. But I understand I have some big shoes to fill. I know Cassandra, so I look forward to doing so.
Well, thank you, and good to have you here.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Mayor, do we need to approve the agenda?
Thank you. Thank you. Moving backwards, are there any additions or changes to the agenda? If none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
John Chumperland so approves.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And that
Who
was
that? That was Shannon.
Ms. Bruce. Okay, so John made that motion and Shannon Bruce seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye, and I'm going to have to do roll call again. Pam, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Mike, what is your vote?
Yes.
John, was your vote?
Yep.
And Shannon, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Lisa, and my vote is Lisa, Mayor Whalen is yes. So that is 5-0. So now we can move on. Mr. Baroni, do we have any emails that you need to read under special persons to be heard?
Mayor and Council, I do not have any emails.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to consent agenda items. Does anybody wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
This is Pam, and I'd like to remove letter C as in cat and E as in elephant.
Okay, so that would leave us with A, amended work session meeting minutes from March 9th, 2020. B is approve our regular meeting minutes from March 23rd, 2020. D is a resolution to approve a 2-year extension to the preliminary plat and dock variance for Highlands on Whale Tail Lake. Those would be the 3, A, B, and D. Is there a motion to approve those 3 consent agenda items?
This is Pam, and I make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
This is John. I'll second.
Okay, so Ms. Mortensen made that motion. Mr. Chumperland seconded that. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. And I'm going to have to do a roll call again. Shannon, how do you vote?
Yes.
And John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And I, yes, as well. So that's 5-0, motion passes. So Pam, we'll move on to you. You removed item number C, and that's approve the claims.
I just have a real quick question on the expenses that we're accruing, anything that goes along with the COVID-19, pandemic. Are we able to track that on the statement that we get so we know that's being itemized so that if we do get funding back, being we are under an emergency, we declared that last session, is it identified on those statements at all that we get in the packet?
This is Brian. I can take that one. So what we ended up doing to notate those is we decided, like usually we've done asterisks for items that are reimbursable by like land use items and stuff. So we did a double asterisk. Like if you look on page 12, Fastenal, I think Gary had purchased some gloves and wipes and stuff for the whole city. So we didn't have much this time yet, but that's one that sticks out as there's any items associated with that, we'll do the double asterisk as to how to track them.
Perfect. And would that include if there is any lawyer fees or engineering fees too? We're able to itemize those?
Correct. I guess if we would expect the same thing, if there's anything directly related that we can trace to the COVID-19, we would delineate that as a line item as much as we can. Correct.
Okay.
So to that point, this is the mayor. To that point, Brian, we already have some expenses because I know Ron and his team worked on the declaration for the meetings and also on the emergency declaration, as well as the declaration for the extension. So make sure, Ron, to make sure that you keep those all separated or that we recognize that those were additional items or expenses.
Good point, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you,
Mayor. Mayor, this is Shannon Bruce. I have a question.
Sure.
I was going to ask this later, and I spoke to Mr. Baroni about it this morning. I asked Mr. Baroni if there were specifically, since we're on the topic, specifically any expenses related to the emergency order, related to the COVID-19 situation that wouldn't have been allowed without the emergency order was my question. And I asked him to have an answer for that this evening, and I'll just ask it now.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is Mike Baroni. To directly answer the question, no, we have not had any additional expenses that would show up above the $2,500 ceiling that's allowed under statute for Plan A cities. I did say at the last meeting and would anticipate, unless it's just a dire emergency, that any purchases that we would in the future that could fall in that category, I would try to run by the city council at a council meeting. But our intentions aren't to exceed that unless absolutely necessary. And to date, we have none, and I don't know if there will be in the future, but we'll certainly try to keep the council apprised as best we can. But
Does that answer your question, Ms. Bruce?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding the claims? All right. Is there then a motion to approve the claims as presented?
I'll make that motion. This is Pam.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Shannon Bruce, I'll second it.
Okay. A motion has been made by Ms. Mortensen and seconded by Ms. Bruce. Any further questions? Hearing none, then I'll go down the line again. Pam, what is your vote?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that is 5-0. So we'll move on to number E. Accept the improvements and authorize the final payments for the 2018 inflow and infiltration project. Ms. Mortensen, you had pulled that. You had some questions?
Yes, I just, this question goes to Allison, and I don't really understand this. Part of the statement that was written, it says here that where do I want to start? The manhole was buried approximately 2 feet and was partially underneath the driveway. Therefore, a contractor could not access the manhole. So what was done exactly to this? I mean, did it get up to the standards? I don't understand what was exactly done in that.
Sure, Madam Mayor, if I can answer Councilmember Mortensen's question. So often when, well, I shouldn't say often, sometimes when a manhole, either a storm manhole or sanitary sewer manhole, is not within the roadways, within private property, there have been instances where a property owner, a landscaping contractor, what have you, would go and place fill or dirt on top of the manhole cover. I'm not sure what happened in this instance, but given the amount of material that was on top of the manhole over the years, something went on there. So basically the manhole, they couldn't access it. So they could get part of it. They could find part of it by digging down, but there's a driveway over top of part of this manhole cover. So to answer Councilmember Mortensen's question, it hasn't been raised up. There is a way to go and get that manhole up to the surface. However, we didn't do it with this project for a couple of reasons. One is a decision needed to be made quickly to do that, and in the interest of public relations with the resident, we didn't feel it was a good idea to move forward with digging up their driveway to get to the manhole. So we can certainly remedy this in the future, but we would just need to have some discussions with that property owner with what we're trying to accomplish. So the sewer lining contractor needed access to that manhole to get the liner in. That's why we didn't get to that particular section.
Okay, and that won't create a problem by not doing it, right?
Well, it's certainly something that, as far as maintaining the city's infrastructure, we would like to get in there and make that repair. But it just is going to require some lead time and talking to the resident, and then we can look to get it on a future lining project.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions then? All right. Any other questions then?
Yes, this is Councilmember Molitor.
Yeah.
What can you explain kind of the timing on this? This looks like it was signed last fall, and it's just getting to us now for 18 work. That's 2 years ago. just kind of articulate what was the delay?
So thank you. So this was part of a joint contract with other cities, and so the other communities that were involved. This was we had the project close out in the other communities because of the funding source used in those cities, and so we were getting those contracts closed out. And then we came in to get the contract closed out with the city of Minnetrista. The contractor is aware that there's been a delay in getting paid, but we're getting this closed out. This work actually took place in 2019. It was just labeled from a 2018 I&I project because that's when, if the council recalls, the original quote package went out under a 2018 project, but they came in high. And so we partnered with the cities of Tonka Bay, Excelsior, and Shorewood to get a bigger project so that we could get some better pricing. So that's why it appears it's a 2-year lag, but the work was done in 2019.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, then, is there a motion to approve item number E, which is accept the improvements and authorize the final payments for the 2018 inflow and infiltration project?
This is Pam, and I make that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
This is John. I'll second that.
All right. So a motion has been made by Ms. Mortensen and seconded by Mr. Chamberlain to approve item number E, accept the improvements and authorize the payments for the inflow and infiltration project. So Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Yes.
And how do you vote, Mr. Chamberlain?
Yes.
And how do you vote, Mr. Molitor?
Yes.
And how do you vote, Ms. Mortensen?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that would be 5-0. So moving on, we have no public hearings. Our business items, we have 2 business items. First one is accept the bids and award the contract for the Sunnyfield Water Tower Maintenance Project. And this is City Project number 04-20. Ms. Fauski, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Late last year, the council may recall that staff was given direction to put plans and specifications together and get bids out for a maintenance project on the Sunnyfield Water Tower. The tower was inspected back in 2017 with a list of items to be addressed and some high-level estimates for doing that work. So the costs were updated prior to going out for bid. Looking at what costs have done over the past 3 years, the estimated cost was provided. We did receive bids were opened on February 20th with 5 bids. As indicated in your packet, the bids range from $520,500 to $757,400. So the low bidder on this project is Osseo Construction Company, and they've done work in other communities and it's been satisfactory. Therefore, staff is recommending that the council would award the contract to Osseo. And then we would also, if council approves the contract, we would also get some notification out to the cellular companies that have equipment on the tower and get them to temporarily relocate their facilities so that this maintenance work can occur.
Okay, so Ms. Fauski, I just have a question. When you say temporarily relocate their facilities, where are they going to do that? I mean, we don't really have any other tall buildings, so are people going to be without cell phone service in this area?
Madam Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, we have both Kelly Mulhern and Greg Johnson, who are a lot more better versed in these types of projects than I am. If one of those gentlemen wouldn't mind providing the council an answer on that.
Okay.
This is Kelly. What they will do is they'll bring in what they call a temporary cow cellular on wheels or a tall pole to which to relocate the antennas. Sometimes they have to bring 2 poles in, so they have one on each side of the tower. The antennas won't be quite as high as the tower, but they'll be up there enough where they'll still have about 80% coverage is what they strive for.
Okay.
So what they do, they'll anchor the tower in, and then they'll put up antennas on the tower, and then they'll take off the other antennas for the duration of the project.
Okay.
That way they'll have
right.
no interruption in service. That's their goal.
And now all of that is at their own expense, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right. Are there any other questions?
If I may,
I'll go down the line. John,
this is
go
John.
ahead.
I have a general question that would relate to whether it's this updating painting the tower or to the road projects, any of those projects. Do we see any, Allison, delay, extension of needing to get the work done based on the current payment, the current issues with the labor force?
Greg and Kelly can certainly jump in here. What I've heard is for this type of work specifically, there are only, as you can see, 5 contractors that submitted some bids, and I don't anticipate we would see any better pricing on this if if we were to go and rebid this project a little bit later. I just don't know that the market's there for it. If it's hard to have that crystal ball, but I just that's what I've been told is we wouldn't see a better price.
And I guess clarification, maybe not so much on the price or when we approve the bids, but just in general that the contractor can get the work done within a projected window of time.
Greg, would you be able
Mr.
to
Johnson,
answer
maybe
that?
that would, yeah. Greg?
Sure. Yeah, Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is Greg Johnson with WSB. And related to the first question, we have a good example. We just recently opened bids for actually another 300,000 gallon tower in Wyoming, Minnesota. And that one, the city requested that we include a bid alternate to have a completion date in the fall of 2021 versus in the fall of 2020 as the base bid. And surprisingly, and it might have to do with, contractors are busy or just the market, but there, of the 5 bids received, only one bidder proposed a deduct of only $3,000 to postpone it until 2021. The other 4 bidders, the deduct ranged from $4,000 all the way up to $100,000 extra to postpone it until 2021.
But Mr. Johnson, you said deduct. Are you saying it would cost an extra $100 to postpone it?
That's correct. Based upon that one bid, yeah.
Okay.
There's one bidder that bid a credit of, but it was only $3,000 for a credit. But 4 of the 5 bidders bid additional costs.
Okay.
But that's not the question here. The question here is, can they actually do the work? Because there's, I think the question is, they're going to be stuck inside a water tower together. Is that going to be workable with COVID-19?
Yes. We have another tower project that we're starting here up in Champlin. It's for a big tower, and the contractor up there, they said they're going to oblige to all the recommendations. They're going to maintain their separation. We've also asked them to just provide a policy so that we have it on record to how they're going to comply with that. But the contractors are telling us that's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
Is there? Thank you, Mike, for that question. Is there? For instance, if enough of their workers were to get ill and not be able to complete the project by the August 31st deadline, would that be? And then let's say it goes on until September or even October. Is that still doable from a temperature and a timing standpoint?
Well, yeah, I think that's a good question. So typically we'll stop we won't allow work to extend past the middle of October. usually historically, because once you get past the middle of October, sometimes you can get nighttime temperatures that get below the minimum recommended temperatures for applying epoxy coatings. Now sometimes you can get some warm falls, that go late into, even sometimes into November with temperatures. But for planning purposes, we try to limit it to about the middle of October for completion of that work.
Okay. And have you talked to any of these contractors? Do you know if they have a backup plan for additional workers, should that be necessary?
We have not, but that's a great question. We could certainly pose that question to them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, Shannon Bruce here. A few meetings back when Mr. Peters was talking about this project, I'm on page 38 and I'm looking at the indirect costs, and it says provide full-time construction observation. And I remember Mr. Peters questioning whether it was really necessary to have full-time observation on the external work on the tower. He seemed to recommend observation on the internal work because there was a lot more things that we had to pay special attention to. So my question is, that line item that amounts to $39,000, $39,356, can we reduce that by limiting the observation work on just the internal part of the tower maintenance and not the external?
Yeah, I think I'll let Kelly answer that question.
All right. Well, I submitted some letters or some reasons why the differences between full-time and part-time inspection. But in a nutshell, contractors don't just work on the exterior or just work on the interior. They work on, all phases at once. If weather is too windy one day, they're going to jump in the interior dry. They just bounce back and forth. So it's very difficult. Plus, you'd end up spending a fair amount of time and travel costs and things like that for those type of dates. I think it's imperative that you got a large structure here. You got a very costly a project here. To me, I've done this for 33 years now, and if I was spending this kind of money, I'd want to be darn sure that I was going to get my bang for the buck out of it. And history has told me that if you have a good inspection on this thing, manufacturers say 15, 18 years you'll get out of it. You have a thorough inspection and a good specification like you have here, you're going to get 20 to 25, and that's more than going to make up for the money you're spending on the inspection. But you have to have good inspection. Contractors are contractors. They'll cut corners wherever they can,
Well, and because Mr. Peters is the one that made the suggestion, I'd like to hear his take on that.
Madam Mayor, Council, I did not make the suggestion. I simply said that it could be a possibility to ask if it is possible to do the inspections. Otherwise, I am wholeheartedly for watching this. I mean, we, look at what the cost of the new tower is that we're putting in, and we're redoing the tower. To me, full-time inspection would be the best. I simply asked, I made the statement that we could ask Mr. Mulhern if he can do a different type thing. I believe he did speak to Brian as to the reasoning why the full is, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Brian or Kelly, did you guys not it's not a different, did a quote package get sent in then, updated one? Am I correct?
Yeah. I sent one over to Brian, but
I think Brian. Let me talk here. This is Brian here. I had asked basically if there was a way, because I've asked on all these projects whether there's a way to look. What do we actually need inspections to be full time? Is there a way to? And I'm not an engineer myself or a public works person, so I more was just looking at the financial costs and if trying to look out for the city a little bit and ask the questions. At least, can we? Is that a possibility? Is it still going to get a good project? And I guess I'm not really sure if it got adjusted much down or not, but that's where it was. I at least asked the question. So
Well, I appreciate your asking the question, and that's why I asked the question. Is I just wanted to know the answer.
Well, Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is Greg Johnson from WSB. One thing just to clarify in our proposal that includes the services of Badger State Inspection for the inspection is that we call it full-time inspection, which ends up being 48 hours per week. That's probably Monday through Saturday. Working with this contractor in the past, it's common for them to work 12-hour days. So they will likely be working 12-hour days, probably Monday through Saturday. So they would probably be working, I would say 60 to even 70 hours a week. So with this proposal, with 48 hours, we would be covering just a fraction of those 60 to 70 hours. Just something to keep in mind. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other questions?
This is Pam, and I do have a quick question. Going back to the cellular lease or the cellular situation, it was mentioned that it may affect the service by dropping it down 80%. Do you think we need to notify the residents that their service might be affected in this short time period?
I guess that question would go to maybe Mr. Johnson or Mr. Mulhern.
Generally, this is Kelly. Generally, we haven't had that problem. There hasn't been enough of a loss to city residents don't have that much of a problem with the 80%. So, and it might not be that much. It might be 10% loss. They get up there pretty high. And
okay.
They have their
just wanted to make sure.
That out, so. Yep.
Okay. How long is this going to be moved onto that pole? Is it like a 2-week period, a month? How long is it?
Well, the contract for the project is 10 weeks, and the antenna people will come out off the tower prior to the contract startup. So probably 2 weeks prior to that, at least. And then afterwards, there'll be 2 weeks to a month after that. That's how long it takes them to get back on the tower. Only one provider can work on the tower at the time, too, and you've got AT&T and T-Mobile on site.
Okay, and they have been notified, so they will be able to meet the timeline?
Madam Mayor, if
yes.
I may, this is Allison Falsky. So the city attorney's office was researching the cellular agreements last week and confirmed, who's on there and the requirements for notification. But we haven't provided a notification because, again, we found out late last week and we had this council meeting this evening for council authorization to move forward with the project. So we can certainly get on that notification requirement here tomorrow if council approves this.
Yeah, so in other words, you wanted to make sure that the project was going forward prior to notifying them. So,
correct.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. All right, good questions. Anybody else with any questions?
Madam Mayor, this is Councilmember Molitor. This topic seems to have morphed into the next one, which is the WSB contract. I have questions on the WSB, but can we get back to separating these two and dealing with them separately, please?
Yes, we're going to deal with the first resolution is approving the awarding the contract to the Osseo Construction Company is what's being recommended, and then we'll be talking about the professional services again, if you will. Okay. So first, are there any more questions regarding the bid and awarding the contract for the Sunnyfield Water Tower Maintenance Project? Okay, if not, is there a motion then to approve awarding the contract to Osseo Construction Company? I believe it's in the amount of $520,000. Is that 500?
Councilmember.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Molitor made the motion and Mr. Trumperlin seconded that. Is that okay?
Acceptable.
Okay.
That works.
With that, all right. With that, Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Shannon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. So that motion passes 5-0. So we'll move on to item number B, and this is approve our professional services agreement for the construction services on the Sunnyfield Water Tower. We've kind of rolled them together, and we've talked about a lot of this. Mr. Molitor, did you have any additional questions or comments?
Yes, I did. On page 38 again, where I see majority of the hours being booked here, 502, was with a coating and welding inspector. For the other 3 positions listed, we've got names tied to them, but this one's TBD. I'd like to have a little more background as to what does that mean. Does that mean you need to hire somebody, or does that mean you've got someone on staff they haven't been yet assigned? I just want to know a little more background on that one. Maybe Allison.
Yeah, that's
or
a
whoever.
good question. I can answer that question. This is Greg. Yeah, TBT is to be determined, of course, and it depends on the person that Kelly Mulhern will assign as the inspector, but it will be a Badger State employee that someone who's also NACE certified. And Kelly, I don't know if you've determined who that person would be, but maybe if you could just chime in here.
Yeah, we got 3 inspectors that are full-time or summertime inspectors that work for us every year. It'll be one of those 3, but it kind of depends upon schedules. We got to, spring projects are coming in, and then this project's going to come in. So we will be, juggling that around when the time comes. But they will be seasoned inspectors. So they've been working for me for a while. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Thank you. So a BSI employee, not a contracted employee. All right. Any other questions? Okay, with that then, is there a motion to approve the professional services agreement for the construction services for Sunnyfield Water Tower Maintenance Project?
So moved, Shannon Bruce.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that. This is Pam.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Ms. Bruce and seconded by Ms. Mortensen. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, then Ms. Mortensen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Molitor?
Yes.
Mr. Chumperland?
Yes.
Ms. Bruce?
Yes.
And Lisa Whalen, aye, yes. That's 5-0. Motion passes. So that concludes the those business items. So we'll move on to staff report. We'll start with Mr. Baroni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I have a number of items to review with you tonight. I want to start with is I hope everybody looked at the information packet that's put with both the packet and the work session packet. In there, I put in some contact information for everybody. It lists all the council members and lists all the city staff, mostly the management staff people that are on this call tonight, on how to reach them, cell phone numbers, etc. So I hope you utilize that. Another item is on the 26th of March, a little over a week ago, we had the pre-construction meeting hosted by SEH for the Southwest Water Tower. It was about an hour-and-a-half meeting. We had from city staff, myself, David Abel, Brian Grimm, and Gary Peters. We had Allison on from WSB, and then we had all the contractors and a couple of their subs, utilities people, both CenterPoint Energy and Excel and MnDOT. It was an extensive conversation about all aspects of the construction, so I think we're off and rolling with that. This next item, there'll be some information that I'll be forwarding to Allie Polfus. It came today from Michelle Swanson. She's the representative for our area for Excel Energy. And I just wanted to state a couple of things that she had in her correspondence. And like I said, this will put up on our webpage and also probably up on Facebook. But she's saying, maybe not from our residents yet, but a number of people have been calling Excel and saying, because as she described, she said we have a captive audience now, so people at home watching. So one of the questions that they're getting routinely asked is, how come there's so many trucks that seem to be coming to, power issues? And essentially they're just trying to follow the social distancing protocols, and they're driving people a lot separately instead of piling all in one truck. So that explains that. They're not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. It's just they're trying to keep their distance. And the other thing is, I've heard this in a number of different areas, but people are saying it's really necessary to do all the tree trimming now. And her explanation was there's really no downtime at this time of year for tree trimming. We do have to do it. So they're trying to prep for possible spring storms, which is the season that we're going into, and they want to avoid power outages. I think people might be more upset if they didn't trim the trees and their power's out 3 or 4 days when that could have been avoided. Next thing, I did send out that email and copied and then sent that along to council members from the Halstead Drive residents that were opposed to the road project, not because of the project, but looking to get a water connection. Not too long after I sent that out, I think there was an inquiry to Adam Gadbois from WSB, if I remember correctly, Allison, that there was I think a contractor that called and was asking some questions about that. So maybe they're in the process of trying to get a water connection. I don't know what their price would be, but I don't know if Allison, if you could add anything to that. I think I got that right.
Certainly, Mike. We had one contractor I talked to late last week. He had spoken to Adam previously. He has a connection, a family member that lives along the street. This particular contractor certainly understood what was all involved with doing the work, and indicated he had several residents that were interested in getting a price from him. So I would anticipate we'll see. I'll preface this by saying that this contractor had not put the price together yet to give the residents, and he indicated that there is usually some sticker shock with that. So we'll see how many folks make a connection. I did talk to another resident yet today who's been getting some pricing and indicated he was interested in getting a connection as well.
So, Ms. Falsky, just a question. Here's Mayor Whalen. They do understand, they need to understand that they have to have this done by the very beginning of June. Otherwise, it's going to cost the city money for delays. That's correct. That's been the folks that had an issue with that time frame. We discussed at the last meeting, and they are aware. We've sent them free correspondence now stating what the deadline is. All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Baroni?
And then the last item I want to follow up on, it had to do with the St. Bonnie Fire Department and their turnout gear. So had a chance to talk to their fire chief today, and I know Councilmember Bruce talked with this same fire chief a week or so ago, not too long after our last council meeting. So I wanted to give you what he told me. So basically where they're at right now is they've decided not to ask our council and other councils for dipping into the reserve fund for the time being. And here's the explanation he gave me today. So they did have a grant through OSHA for buying some of the turnout gear that they need. They actually were going after a $20,000 grant, and they're also in need of radios. And so of that $20,000 that you can maximally ask for, part of that was for radios and part of that was for the turnout gear. Well, they got denied on the radios, but they did get the turnout gear. And the cost of that grant was $13,720. That's basically to buy 7 sets of turnout gear. But that basically that grant has disappeared, and it's disappeared because of COVID. Honeywell is the maker of the gear. They are not working and they are not making any turnout gear right now. And also, even if they were making it, and because of COVID, they're not sending somebody out to measure firefighters up. So their goal is to try to reapply for this grant and put all their requests towards the turnout gear and not worry about the radios for now. And the results of their inspection by OSHA basically said that about a third of their turnout gear is older than 10 years and considered unsafe, both by OSHA and the NFPA, the National Fire Prevention Association. So they got 24 firefighters. And so this would have bought 7 turnout gear, which was the reason they were looking to dip into the reserve fund. Now, they usually have a couple of new firefighters every year or so, and they try to basically once they get past their probation period of about a year, and during that time they're using old turnout gear that best fits them. They don't buy them new gear and then they quit. But once they make it through their probation period, they get new turnout gear, and then they try to replace 2 more. They're not always successful in getting that done, but that's their goal each year. So they are trying to budget money to replace 4 per year. So like I said, they're going to resubmit for the turnout gear later this year. And they do have some additional funding sources that the chief identified for me. So they utilize some money from the Women's Auxiliary Fund, which are basically the wives and female relatives of firefighters. That's one of their fundraiser groups, but that's usually done through the Spastagen event in St. Bonnie, and we have no idea right now if that will even take place yet this year. You also tap into funds from the St. Bonnie Fire Relief Fund. You also use a special equipment fund that they try to fund every year. They would also use this grant, and then the last item that they would use as a funding source would be the reserve funds that they were asking a couple weeks ago to try to do. So that's in a nutshell where they're at and why they've decided to not pursue buying the turnout gear, because even if they can't get anybody to come out to measure them, or they can't get it made anyway. So they're going to just try again. I know Councilmember Bruce basically gave the nutshell version of that by saying that to me when she sent me an email last week. But after talking with the chief today, I thought it'd be a good idea just to give the whole council just a kind of a process and why they ended up deciding what they ended up deciding. So we'll see this again. Just don't know how much money they'll want from the reserve fund, if any. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brony. Anything else under City Administrator?
Nope, I don't think so, madam.
All right.
That's 5
All
items.
right.
Usually my max.
I just have one question. Mr. Brony, do you happen to know or have any kind of a time frame schedule? When will we have our next discussion regarding the 2021 road projects? I know we usually have an informational meeting. I mean, what's the next step and when would that happen?
I hope soon. I will probably be talking with Ms. Falsky about that, and hopefully we can get that going.
Okay, are we talking like maybe sometime in May?
I don't know if Ms. Falsky wants to jump in on that, but I hope so.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Baroni, we could certainly look at doing something for May. The council did give staff good direction with regards to a local street improvement project with the Hardscrabble area. I think the next step is to determine, based on the desire to get Loring and Stonebridge in there, as far as getting estimated assessment amounts within a range that the council would be comfortable with. So that's something we could bring back to the council for discussion. And then we also had the municipal state aid route, Sunnyfield, over by the school. Right. And I did check in with the transportation engineer that's doing the traffic study to see where they're at with that traffic study, so that that would be the guiding document as far as bringing that back to the council and looking at what that project would look like.
All right. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for our administrator? All right. So city engineer, Ms. Fauske, you have an update?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just to give the council a quick update with closing out the Enchanted Lane project. We've been in contact with the general contractor, Valley Paving, with regards to getting all the documentation necessary to close out the project. The Valley Paving did indicate that they are able to move forward with that. We got some correspondence from the subcontractor that we were waiting for some paperwork on with regards to the subcontractor's claim. The city attorney's office has reviewed our response to that claim and it concurs with staff's direction, the direction that staff is going in. So I'm hopeful that I can bring that to the council, if not the next meeting, that first meeting in May, so that we can close out this project.
Okay. Anybody have questions, additional questions for our city engineer? All right.
Madam Mayor?
Are there any other? Yes.
I was just going to say, this is Brian. I think that you guys probably saw on Flames, but I think I wanted to at least, maybe not celebrate is the right term, but the RAM, the final payment was made to RAM, so we should never have to deal with them again. So.
Yay. Yeah. All right. That was a long process. All right. Very painful. Thank you, Brian, for pointing that out. Anybody else? Mr. Abel? Okay.
No, I do not. I do not, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you. And Chief Falls, a quick update on our newest hire? Any idea in terms of when that officer would be on board, approximately?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, so the psychological exam has been scheduled for April 14th, and the physical exam will follow that. I believe it's scheduled for the following week or so after that. So we are making some forward progress. And then based on the outcome of those two items, we would hope to be able to get our candidate started probably sometime in May.
All right, thank you. Because it would have to come back to the council for final approval and hire, and then you'd have to let that individual know so that they can give notice, and so it'd be sometime mid-May maybe?
Yes, that sounds about right.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, are there any reports? Mr. Trumperlin, do you have any reports?
Just the upcoming, there'll be another Pioneer Sierra Creek TAC meeting this coming Thursday, virtual again, and then the monthly meeting will be the following Thursday, the 16th.
All right. And Ms. Bruce?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to talk briefly about the Jennings Bay project up on 19. As I was driving up there the other day, and I hadn't driven up there for a couple of weeks, and they had just started the project, and I was frankly shocked as I drove past that parcel because it was decimated. And I wasn't surprised to get an email shortly after that from one of our residents.
No,
I'm sure you all got
our
this.
resident.
Who?
Yeah,
He's from Minnetrista?
No, he lives in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay, I thought he was from Minnetrista, but I wasn't surprised to get an email about that project because from when the landowner came and talked to the city council, I remember him saying that he was wanting to protect as many of the trees as he could, and he was so concerned about that, and it really gave us a lot of assurance that that project wasn't going to turn out to be another red oak, where they just took all the trees out and now there are no trees at all down there. And I feel like we were misled by the landowner who said they were going to be so careful to preserve the trees, and now it looks like a bomb went off in there. It's horrible. And I don't know if Mr. Abel knows if there have been discussions with them about mitigating that or what, but I'm really disappointed, and I feel like the council is misled.
Mr. Abel, do you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council. No, they followed. We verified with the WSB inspector. They did have their pre-construction meeting. The trees were marked. That construction limits and trees were marked to be cut as was approved with the plans that were approved by City Council. So they have followed through with the approved plans that went forward. So they cut what they said were they're going to cut. What he spent a lot of time talking about was replanting of trees and landscaping. And so obviously that's yet to come. They just started their first stage of the project, but we can confirm that they followed through with what the approved plans are.
They will have to replant quite a few trees, and if they can't replant the number of trees that's required based on our ordinance, then they have to pay into the environmental fund. Is that correct?
Correct. And they already have paid in. So they're going to be replanting 1,564 caliper inches of trees is what the proposed landscape plan has called for. That's what's going to go back in. That does not include boulevard trees. We did not count that for credit, but that is just trees outside of the boulevard that they will be planting. They paid the city $55,800 to be exact, because there was 558 inches that they could not replant on the site. We've already received that money. That was approved in the subdivision agreement that usually follows right after the final plat approval. That number would have been in there. They can't start any of the work or record the plat until we have that money. So we certainly have that money already.
Okay.
So have we verified that they followed the plan and what they intended to do, and or have we not done that yet?
As I said when I started, yes, we have. The WSB inspector was out there before they were cut and after, and they have followed the plan. Yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Abel, I haven't had a chance to go there since the cutting began, but I do recall there was some discussion about trying to maintain as many of the perimeter trees as possible, particularly as a buffer to the existing properties. Do you know if they were able to maintain the perimeter trees and or vegetation?
Yes, they've followed the approved plan, Madam Mayor and Council. Okay. I haven't been there, but I've seen the pictures, and you can see the perimeter trees are there, and they have followed the approved plan to this point.
Okay. All right.
I guess before the perimeter trees were sort of shielding view of the development inside, and I guess that's what I envisioned, was that there were going to be perimeter trees so that you couldn't see in there, and the perimeter trees are so thinned out they might as well not even be there. I was just disappointed in how it turned out.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Anything else, Ms. Bruce?
No, that's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Molitor?
Yes, I would like to just note on that Jennings Bay development. This was part of the reason why I voted against this, because in subsequent, when Martineau brought this forward, he was first singing all the praises about how the trees he was going to save. But as he went on and on, he acknowledged that his commitment to that was going to have to be reduced to get all these houses in there. So I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised. And so
right.
I'm glad I voted the way I did. But nothing else to add.
Yeah, I think, no. And I'm just kind of a side comment there is, there was a minimum of 12 units required for that development, and we allowed 13, so one more unit. So I'm not sure that it would have really saved a whole lot more trees, if any. I understand the only way it could have been saved is if we had approved like townhomes in there. And of course, we know that doesn't go over real well either. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place with the that are required. So, but yeah, always kind of a sad day to see a lot of trees removed. Anything, Ms. Mortensen, did you have anything?
I just wanted to give an update with the cancellation of Trista Day. All the sponsors for the pig races have been notified via email that their money is going to be carried over again next year. And I did not have any problems. Nobody has said that they wanted their money back, and they were fine with, saving the money up until that time. And I also notified the pig race owner, and we did not have to do a deposit or anything. So we will just have him scheduled again next year.
All right. Great. Thank you. And I have no reports. A lot of meetings have been canceled, and I think I have a conference, a Zoom meeting with one of our representatives this week, and that's about it. So with that, if that concludes our business and our meeting, a motion to adjourn is in order.
This is Pam, and I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ms. Mortensen made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Shannon.
Okay, Ms. Bruce seconded that. Any further discussion? Actually, there is none. So, Ms. Mortensen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Molitor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Chamberlain, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so the motion passes 5-0, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Good job, people.